I want to know if the President of the United States, what would your uncle think of his statements, of Michelle Obama's statements that she's made recently about the current situation about race in America?
My uncle would understand that Mrs. Obama, the First Lady of the United States of America, was functioning from the pain of the human soul, the will, the mind, the emotions. But he would call her to step up higher into the human spirit that can look at the content of a character rather than the color of a skin. And, we have skin color, and that is part of the human experience. But we cannot live there. We must be elevated. That's where the answers are going to be when we go into the spirit, the human spirit, and connect with God and find our solutions.
Yeah. Sheriff Clark, you hear the president. We just played his comments about police officers. And I told the story about this Nelson County sheriff in Kentucky who actually said that, wow, they shot a perpetrator, police department. We were glad that he's white. We shouldn't have to be worried about that. Where is that kind of comment having to come from?
Well, first of all, I don't like that comment. But let me say this. Who would have thought that we would need a period of reconstruction similar to after the Civil War, after the election of the first black president of the United States? Sean, one of the reasons that we can't have a discussion on race in America, listening to your last segment, is people start talking over each other and you can't get a word in edgewise. But let me say this about the First Lady. I thought that was pathetic. That was her I feel your pain moment. She should know better than that. When you're talking to young people like I get to all across the Wisconsin area, I give them a message of hope. I tell them to overcome obstacles. Sure, it's tough in life. Sure, you have to come from behind. You started off from behind, but you can catch up as we go on. So on the way I've approached this thing, I have forgiven America for the past sins of slavery. I didn't say forget. I said I've forgiven them for that. And I've decided to leave that plantation and shed that emotional baggage so that I could participate in the mainstream. That's the message that I try to share with young people. Instead of this perpetual creation and division of turmoil between blacks and whites in America. I think it's been a very destructive period of time the last 6 years. I think it can get better, but first it's going to have to start with a lot less emotion, and I think that's on both sides of the table here.
Alveda, let me ask you, the president often talks about high-profile race cases. We have an epidemic with young people. We don't know their names, like Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and Freddie Gray. We don't know their names, of kids being killed in cities all across this country every day, including Atlanta, where you live, and I used to live. Why doesn't the president ever talk about that when the numbers are so much higher than these incidents that we talk about with police?
There again, elevation is required. Content of character, recognizing that these young men, young women, young teenagers and children are human beings. We're not recognizing them as human beings.
But we're not saving them.
We're having a skin color war, which is primitive. The skin color war is primitive. It's base. We've got to elevate. Dealing with the content of character, recognizing the worth of each of these young people, and once we recognize that worth, give them a reason to live, not a reason to be angry, not a reason to feel as though they are still on the plantation, that they are still the victims. They need to know that there is something of value in their lives, and this can be done. I agree with Sheriff Clark.
Sheriff, what's your reaction? We have an epidemic. Young people killing young people. We don't know their names. We don't hear the president talk about that. If it's a police incident, high profile, if it fits a narrative that's political for him that he wants to advance, we hear about it. Why doesn't he use the power of the presidency for that?
Well, that's what I keep my fingers crossed every time that I hear him speak on this issue, but he stumbles out of the gate. Look, he has an opportunity here. He's a role model for a lot of not just black people, but young black men all across America. And what he should do is to remind people of lifestyle choices. It's the behavior of many of these young black men in these urban ghettos that cause most of the problems that they endure. It's self-inflicted. All right, school failure, having kids out of wedlock, young black men having kids and not being a real father and a dad to those kids. And I think that they would listen more coming from him than from somebody else. So I think it's just a missed opportunity. It's a swing and a miss. But when you go through life looking at everything through the lens of race, you're going to find a boogeyman lurking around every corner. When I listened to Michelle Obama, First Lady of the United States, with all due respect, I couldn't tell if she was talking about 2015 or 1815.
Oh, all right. Powerful statement from both of you. Guys, good to see you both.